I want to start today going back to the Pandora Papers. Now, the Pandora Papers are different than the Panama Papers. The Pandora Papers, as we talked about, what was it now? I guess it must have been about 5 weeks ago or something like that, the beginning of October. The Pandora Papers are these leaks about 12 million different documents, and it was an undertaking involving more than 600 journalists in more than 115 countries. It was all organized or data obtained by the ICIJ. That's the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists in Washington, D.C. They worked with all these different media organizations. It was a massive, it's an incredible accomplishment journalistically to even do such a big project. It's a huge project. And also it was huge in that it exposed hidden wealth. It exposed money laundering. It exposed tax avoidance, and much of it by the world's rich, the world's powerful, many of the elites, as they are often known. We now have a specific story about consequences thanks to the Pandora Papers. Now, consequences, but it's sort of like when Trump was impeached by the House. It was a consequence, but we knew there would be no conviction. It's sort of similar, and this comes to us from the country of Chile. The Guardian reporting that the Chilean president has been impeached over the revelations in the Pandora Papers. Now, it's impeached by the lower house, not expected to be convicted, similar to Donald Trump's impeachment. I'll tell you that up front, but we're going to get to that in a moment. Chile's President Sebastián Piñera has been impeached by the lower house of Congress, setting up a trial in the nation's Senate over allegations that he favored the sale of a family property while in office. The vote to impeach passed, but barely. It had 78 votes in a 155-member Chamber of Deputies. There was one of the craziest things is there was like a real, not a filibuster, but there was one of these marathon sessions, 20 hours. 67 legislators voted against, including several members of the opposition. Some abstained or were absent, and 78 voted in favor. Piñera is unlikely to be removed by the 43-member upper house, where the opposition has only 24 of the 29 votes. So he has the overwhelming majority of the votes in the upper house. The trial will come in the heat of a general election campaign. First round of elections set for the 21st of November. The term ends on the 11th of March. Chile does not permit presidential reelection to consecutive terms, so term limited out anyway. So what's at issue here? This was not like the most explosive of the revelations, to be totally clear, but the leaked documents revealed a controversial deal to sell the Piñera family's stake in the Dominga mining project. And a contract found by the project suggested the first 138 million of the sale was made through shell companies registered in the BVIs, the British Virgin Islands. The documents suggest the final payment on the mine sale in 2011 hinged on the government declining to declare its location in north central Chile a nature preserve. So it's sort of like cronyism, favors. It's everything, you know. Piñera said he had not been involved in managing the companies and didn't even realize the connection. The government at that time was headed by Piñera, didn't do so despite appeals from environmentalists. The president's office noted last month that Piñera's first term as president from 2010 to 2014 hadn't started when the sale was agreed to, and that prosecutors and courts decided in 2017 no crime was committed and the president wasn't involved and all taxes were paid and that his holdings are now in a blind trust, et cetera, et cetera. However, they did ultimately get the majority needed in the lower house for this impeachment. So what do we take from this? What do we make of it? On the one hand, we can say, and I think it's accurate to say, activism and investigative journalism have real impacts in the real world. It's one of the first examples of the Pandora Papers actually being that. They are not just these sort of like, what would we call it? It's not disaster porn. It's not elite porn. It's sort of like, these are not merely, wow, look at this, look at the money, and look at the things that they do. It led to a real consequence of sorts. That being said, you could argue this is kind of a token move. that there is no way in hell that he's actually going to be removed because the impeachment trial in the upper house is going to say, no, we are not removing him. He can't run in the next election anyway and is down to the last 4.5 or so months there. So that's a fair position as well. This is kind of a token move. For me, the takeaway is this was an extraordinarily well carried out project of investigative journalism. It exposes that even many of the supposed good guys in power are still doing all of the same things that the so-called bad guys are doing when it comes to cronyism and money and deals and the like. And it furthers for me the importance of these kinds of projects continuing to be supported and continuing to do their work. You look at history, and whether it's Woodward and Bernstein with Nixon or whatever example you want to pick, investigative journalism exposes important things. And it's one of the first things that goes when media organizations say we've got to tighten the belt. And as I've explained to you before, if you are a media organization and you are given the option of, okay, we're going to do investigative journalism, which means funding reporters who have to do, in many cases, significant travel, paying sometimes for different aspects of conducting the investigative journalism for a story that they might work on for a year or more. And we might get something out of it, but we might not get something out of it. That's one option as a media entity. You can pay for that. Or on the complete other side of the spectrum, you say, I'm going to hire writers who will sit at home and just rewrite articles from other news organizations, adding our spin. Not naming anybody, but that's a business model. You have a website, you don't do original reporting. You say, oh, look, here's a story reported by the Washington Post and the New York Times. Let me put a different headline on it, quote from it, and publish it and run ads on that. That is dirt cheap to do compared to this type of investigative journalism, which can take months or years. And we don't really get much out of the latter, but we get a lot out of the former, but the former costs a lot more. So this is also related to the reality of sort of the industry of journalism at this point in time. Interesting. I don't think this will lead to much in terms of the Chilean president, but it is at least a consequence from the Pandora Papers. One of our sponsors today is Blue Chew, a unique online service delivering the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. And they're giving my audience an entire month's supply for free. So if you think you could benefit from an extra boost of confidence when it's time, all you have to do is take a short quiz on their website. A licensed doctor approves your prescription. The medication comes straight to your home within days in a discreet package. No driving around to the doctor's office or the pharmacy. No waiting around. No awkward conversations with your doctor. All of Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. The entire process is just a few clicks. Go to bluechew.com. The link is underneath this video. They'll give you an entire month's supply for free when you use the promo code PACMAN. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping.